listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NC F&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. Our featured spirit of the week is Pine Top Distillery of Raleigh, inside the Beltline. We're a team of self-taught distillers using our shared backgrounds in engineering, biochemistry, finance, and marketing to bring Raleigh its first true grain-to-glass distillery, producing unaged bourbon-style moonshine and citrus-infused gin. Check them out online at pinetopdistillery.com and on social at Pine Top Distillery. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today with us in studio, we have two gentlemen who are bringing Latin flavor and culture to the South, specifically to Raleigh. The owner and chef of both Jose & Sons and the Cortez, Mr. Charlie Ibarra, and Chef Oscar Diaz. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thanks.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Well, so congratulations, Oscar, on your recent semifinal nomination for the James Beard Awards.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was amazing and
well deserved,
and well deserved, and well deserved. Yes.
It's funny. I feel the same way. People are like, "Congratulations!" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I kind of like I'm stuck for words as well. I'm like, it was just a crazy experience, you know. So
yeah. How'd you hear? How'd you find out?
I actually went on vacation. I had been like trying to get out on vacation for a little bit, and then I went to Chicago right in the middle of like the vortex. It was like my spring break. It was a brilliant decision. So I went out there. That's where my family's from. So I went out there, and then I got all these phone calls one morning and like texts, and I was like, something's wrong at work. And so like being responsible, I just like didn't look at them at the time. I was like, well, there's not much I can do out here. So
I'm on vacation.
And it's been overdue.
Charlie's right next to you. Just here.
I know, right? I'm like, he's not gonna hear this, right? His headphones are off.
He's not paying attention. Don't worry.
But yeah, so I finally looked because like one of them was like, "Dude, answer your phone," and I'm like, "All right, this is getting like, all right, what's going on?" So I look, and then kind of I see all the texts like, "Congratulations, this, that," and so it was. I mean, it was awesome. There's also like a sense of, I don't know if everyone experienced this, but like I was like, "Yay, I'm happy," and I'm like, man, I got a lot like. I felt this like great responsibility.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I need to like hold it down now. I need
Spider-Man, dude, with this
with
this
great power comes great responsibility. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So I got all Spider-Man. I got my Spidey senses up, and it was awesome. And the weird part was I was in my like old childhood bedroom, which is weird because like I don't know, I haven't lived there in forever. So to be in a room where you were just like kind of just dumb for a long time. Like, I'm like, I'll just watch TV and, like, whatever. And then now
this
I'm
is
here,
when
like...
I was stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean, not much has changed. But it just was weird to hear that, like... Yeah, something that's, like... I mean, this is my career.
Right.
So to get something that's, like, even though I didn't win or anything, and just to even be mentioned... I was like, this is crazy. So I don't know. It was a little bit of a surreal experience at the time, and then I was far away too, so I felt like a little helpless at that point.
Yeah,
I was like, man, I want to go back and do all this stuff, and then I'm like, but I got like 4 more days of vacation, so
I think we all know in the food and beverage industry that getting a semifinal nod is like winning, though. I mean, it's telling people in your region like, oh, hey, everybody, pay attention. This guy knows what he's doing. So I think like just getting the nod, that's like a huge, just you have arrived type of. Announcement and totally deserved, like I said before, because I ate at your place that Friday or Saturday night, and I believe the announcements were like on Tuesday or something, like a few days later. So I had just seen you and met you for the first time in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But we didn't know all the fanfare was coming. Felicia and I ate there and were blown away. Charlie, we're going to talk about front of the house like presence and just ownership because you really did it right. You made us feel really welcome, and we were blown away at the food, the style, everything. It was so subtle, but so great. And just walking up to you, Oscar, at the end of the meal, just talking to you. You've got this great little perch outside of your kitchen, and it's a unique aspect of your style, of your culinary style, which we will get into as well. But speaking to you there and just saying, man, like, how'd you do those beans? How'd you do those butter beans? And you're going to tell us how you do them as well. There's a lot of stuff we're going to get to.
I just want to say for a second, I thought that reaction was going to go in a completely different way. Not that this is you at all, but I thought you were going to be like, damn, fool, about time they recognized. Shit.
Well, no, so, like, it's weird, right? Because, like, I am kind of like that person where I'm like, oh, like, let's get it. Like, that's who I am. But then, you know how you read, like, something like, oh, man, I'm humbled, or, like, it's humbling to, like, really this, I didn't expect, like, I've worked
You had no idea.
Like, I knew that there was we had been, like, to vote for me and all that. So, like, there was some level, but then I'd forgot about all that. Like, that was months ago.
Yeah.
And so, you just go to day, and, I've worked for some awesome chefs and all this. So, it's a big thing. So, it was just weird because I felt like, man, like, not to get, like, too deep into it, but, like, I feel like me personally, I'm always in search for, like, an identity. And so, like, cooking has kind of, like, taught me a lot of shit about life. Like, it just happened. Like, things coincide, and I'm like, oh my God. And it just kind of starts changing a little bit. And this was one of those things where I'm like, I could sit here and try to act like I'm going to talk my shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's about time and all that. But really, it was like, no, man, like, it's more like I was telling myself, it's about time, you step your shit up and, really get going, because people are paying attention. And it was just a little bit of a game changer, man. I'm still trying to, like, figure out, like, the meanings of everything. But
yeah, can't mess up anymore.
I hope that's true. I was just like, anything like.
But let's talk about the Cortez, and I think no one better to talk about it than Charlie El Cortez Ibarra. Just first off, where did the name Cortez come from? Is that the navigator? Or
not the conquistador, dude.
Not the conquistador. No.
No, please don't relate that. No, names are always a funny thing with any restaurant, I guess. But with ours, we knew Oscar and I were really wanting to explore a little bit more our Chicano identity. Jose and Sons explored a lot, our roots and being North Carolina, but the Mexican heritage. Whereas Cortez, we knew it was going to be more open-ended, no real specific labels to, like, geographic regions. So with that said, Cortez has a Hispanic connotation, but we just wanted to find a word that we thought had just a ring to it, a sound to it that we liked. And we did take a trip to Baja California. I went once with my brother Hector, and then I invited Oscar. I felt so excellent about that experience. I really enjoyed the food scene. You're basically an hour south of San Diego, and you're in the Valle de Guadalupe, which is a wine region, and that's popping right now in Mexico. Highly recommended. And so I had Oscar go, and you are at that point next to the Sea of Cortez, which is has its own bounty of seafood.
I love how he's like, oh, we invited him. They felt bad they left me the first time. And we're out there, they're like I'm like, don't send me any more freaking pictures of this. Because I'm just like in Raleigh working my ass off. And they're like, wine country. I'm like, sounds sweet, guys. Sounds sweet.
Oh, like it is.
Non sequitur, there's some good Chenin Blanc and Nebbiolo, I believe, coming out of Guadalupe.
Yeah, the Mediterranean climate there. They have, like, they grow olives. It was very similar to, like, I guess, being certain parts of Italy and stuff, because they have, it's translated very well to that part of Mexico.
There's no reason why that part of Mexico couldn't be in a freaking amazing wine growing region, just for the simple fact that Mexico is probably the greatest place to grow agriculture in the world, arguably, but it is kind of like the bed of some of the best agriculture in the world. So that it only makes sense. It's just, I guess, maybe there hasn't been as much focus on wine up until the last few decades.
Probably a little bit hot for wine growing grapes, but I guess the ocean there probably tames that
region.
Yeah.
I mean, what we have had out there is fantastic. I mean, honestly, it's on another level. Like, the funny thing is, we were in L.A. first. Like, I used to live out in L.A., so we went to take a trip out to L.A. Then from there, we just went down to San Diego, and then from San Diego, you have to go to Tijuana first. And I mean, that's like
Revolucion.
Yeah, like getting right into the border of Tijuana. Oh, God, that was a little weird story there, too. But anyway, Anyway, I didn't have an ID on me. And so, like,
what?
I had
in this day and age.
And I had to sneak into Mexico.
And you're Latino.
That's the funny part.
Never happens.
I was like, I'll just go through where all the Latinos are walking in. They're not going to say anything. And, like, And they're like, no, it's cool.
How
It's
would
really...
you get back though?
They're not gonna hold me in Mexico. I'm like,
But
That's
if
what
they
he
don't
kept
know you're
telling me.
American-
And
I went on that whim and it worked, so I'm not questioning it anymore. I'm like, it worked. So I'm like,
Yeah, but if you didn't have ID in this day and age, getting back into the country,
I mean, I had an ID. It was just an expired ID or something. I forgot what the case was. I was
you
like,
know how many Mexicans are probably telling that story at the
I
border
know,
right now.
but I felt like this one. I was like, I got
He
it.
wasn't worried at all.
I was not worried at all. I was like, whatever. I'm like, getting in was my only concern. I'm like, that'd suck if we went all the way this far and then I can't get in. And then I'm like, I don't get to go to this like mythical place they're talking about.
Send you pictures again.
Yeah,
while you're,
right. And I'm like,
stuck
it's in Tijuana or like on the other side of the border. But
You do have proper paperwork now.
I do have it.
Just want to make sure.
No, at that time,
Some people might be listening.
but it was funny. I just like walked right in, and they were like, I created a little confusion, a little Barry Sanders juke there. And they're like, "Hey, what happened?" I'm like, "Oh, no," and I'm like, walked through, and then on the way back, it was like cakewalk. I just like went right. I don't know. I mean, I'm not,
Yeah, it's like you walk in like you own the place.
Yeah,
it's
it's like I pulled the nightclub theory. I just act like I saw someone on the other side that I know. I'm like, hey, and then I like
what's
walk
up?
right past. And
Yeah.
like, it was over.
All right, so let's talk about border crossings and places of origin for a second. So you're originally from Chicago.
When
Yes.
you're saying you're pointing to Oscar.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you,
a
Max.
podcast.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot. Where's the cameras? What brought you to North Carolina?
Oh man, I always say I got on the wrong flight, but it was the right
Love this
flight
guy.
for sure. So I had been traveling around cooking, and really, I was in L.A. My time there was just basically over. I was ready to kind of move on to the next step, and I was going to go to Chicago. And actually, I did go to Chicago. I met some people. I was going to open a restaurant there.
Well, let's not gloss over. You were working for some pretty amazing chefs and restaurants at various times.
Yeah, so I was pretty loyal to the places I was at. I wasn't one to kind of like jump around a lot. I try to always stay and learn as much as I can. I would feel comfortable, and I felt like that was just a better environment for me. I mean, I think if I would have moved, obviously you pick up a lot of stuff, but I was happy where I was at, and I felt people were better than me there.
Who were you working with in
So
LA?
I was in LA. I worked for the Patina Group.
Yeah.
So that was Joachim Splichal's places, and that was the one right there in downtown in the Walt Disney Concert Hall.
Yeah, people that don't have a frame of reference to this, Matt and I both lived in LA for a long time.
okay, yeah.
I'm from that area. I call myself, I'm from LA. I'm technically from San Jose, but I lived in LA for 20 years.
Okay.
roughly. So, anyhow, the Walt Disney
Concert
hall
yeah.
is beautiful. It's like a architectural genius design.
Yeah.
But
Exact-
Patina Group is probably known as the most forward, like broadest and most successful restaurant group in LA. So.
Yeah, he's involved in everything. He has restaurants everywhere. Like, he's been a very highly celebrated chef. Like, I mean, he's in books. Like, you start reading, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, damn, he's in this.
So it's
that.
not like you were just like making ghetto dogs outside of the Staples Center.
No, I did that too. no.
Okay.
I was eating them, but
Yeah.
I wish I'm all about that.
I want a ghetto dog. They're delicious.
Yeah, they're
bacon wrapped dogs. Is what I'm talking about.
the Dodger dogs, or Danger dog. They have a lot of names, but everyone loves them. So I worked there, and before that, I was in Vegas working at Alizé, which is on top of the Palms Casino,
Yeah.
and that was Andre Rochat is the chef owner, and then Chef Mark Purdy was executive chef. The Von Stadens were there. I mean, like, there was like a really, I mean, maybe not everybody knows these people, but I mean,
Yeah, but they're in the business. These guys are pretty
it's
high
funny because
level.
I come across people and they're like, "Oh, you worked for so and so," and I'm like, "Damn!" Like, I worked with them in DC, and I forget that people like travel around a lot.
Yeah.
But I got lucky. I learned from some really good people, but it was like old school style. Like, it was like old French kitchens, and like, ooh, man, I kind of wish they weren't all that good because I was just like, I sucked. So like, people were just like constantly. Like, when I first got my first jobs, they were just riding me so hard. But that's kind of also, I kind of like, I know like right now everyone's like, oh, you can't be like that. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but like that, I think that worked for me because like, I was kind of like a punk.
Gives you structure.
Yeah, people were like, yo,
prepares
do
you.
this. And I was like, no one tells me what to do. I'm like straight out of Chicago or whatever.
So
But
being kind of anti-establishment, but then being like, what was that your need? Were you looking for discipline?
I just, it's so weird because like on the way, I knew I wasn't anything. Like I was acting all hard all the time, and then all of a sudden I'm like driving to work, and I'm like, ugh. I just felt sick. I'm like, oh God, like this is scary, and I'd still go. I would still go, and I don't know. I just like it. As chaotic as it was, I felt I wanted to be good at it, so it wouldn't be chaotic.
Yeah.
And then also I was like, I've never felt. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't want to ever back down from, but I was like, I'm not backing down from this, and that was just like my attitude with it. I'm like, all right, this sucks. And all of a sudden, things started getting a little bit better. And I'm like, all right, now it's like golf. Like, you swing at at the thing and you don't hit it, and it's like this sucks, you know, or you hit it and it just goes like it hits you in the ankle or something. You're like, how the hell did it go backwards? So then when you finally get that nice stroke, you're like, ooh, that was kind of nice. So
it's the shot that makes you keep coming back.
Yeah, and I've actually had that experience with golf as well, so that's why I was able to relate to that. But
I've never, by the way.
No, I was talking about where you hit it and it hits your ankle. I haven't had the sweet shot yet, but it just I was like, I'm not backing down from this. And then, you know, as time went on, I realized I was working for some awesome people, and then like it's a fraternity in a sense, or like I don't know, it's like there's this camaraderie level, and I would leave work like head up high and like my chest out, and I was like, I don't know why.
But you must have had like a mom and dad that like loved you so dearly to give you the confidence to where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go work for the best restaurants in the nation, just kind of go from one city to the next and plow. Did you get a morning phone call from mommy every day going like, are you ready to kill the world?
That's funny. You know, my parents, they raised us right, that's for sure. My mom's super like, go get it, like don't back down. Yeah. But I do remember one time being like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. It was like first couple of days that I got my job at Alizé. It was just like weird walking into a casino. It was weird. I'm living in a theme land city. Like there's like roller coasters and shit on the way to work. There's like pyramids. I'm like,
soon to be the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish that would have been there. It would have given you more identity. There was like no real identity in Vegas. Just like people just go there to like wild out and then leave you with the mess. But so yeah, I mean, I remember one day just being like, man, I'm low. I need someone to like, you know. And I called my mom. And she's like, she was like, yo, quit being a baby. She's like, you know, like shit's hard until it's not. And I was like, oh well, all right. Well, that's not what I was looking for. I wanted like chicken soup and like a bed and shit. But
so you went back to Chicago, your hometown, to cook there as well. And who were you working with in Chicago?
So I went to go open a restaurant there. I did a couple stages, but like I felt like it was so weird. And this is something that happens to me a lot in my life, like where people like call me something that I'm like kind of am but kind of not. So when I went to Chicago, I went to go stage at L2O. At the time, it was like the hottest. Like it was 3 Michelin. I mean, it was amazing. And I went there, man, and that chef was like, he was looking at me like I was trash. And I'm like, no, man, I'm like from the same, not same pedigree as you, obviously, but I'm like, I've worked in these places. I want to get better. And I was like, all about, I was ready to do anything. And like, I remember I went to hand him my resume and he put his hand out, and then as it was about to go to his hand, he just like moved his hand out of the way, like kind of like psych, like, you know, like I'm like, what is this, the 90s? Or
like Zach Morris?
Yeah, he's Zach Morris. He totally 90s me with
was
that.
Was he wearing like a chef coat with a bright neon T-shirt?
He like popped his collar,
huge phone in the other hand.
I'm like, no wonder you got 3 Mich. No. Anyway, finally, some other guy came by and he's like, yeah, it's like the chef. I can't even remember his name right now. But he's you know, whatever. And he's like, yo, come in, whatever. So I went in. It was crazy even getting in there. And then they were like, yeah, you West Coast chefs or cooks. And I'm like, I'm from Chicago. And he's like, but that's not where you've worked. You know what I mean? So I was considered West Coast there. I'm considered
restart.
Yeah, Mexican in the U.S. I'm considered American in Mexico. When I first came to the South, I remember someone was like, oh, you're a Yankee? I'm like, man, I don't even know what I am anymore. It's a very loose term of who I am. So.
Right. Now, we do have to figure out how you got on that accidental flight that led you to Raleigh, but hopefully it was to meet up with Charlie, because we got to figure out how you two met. And Charlie, why did you want to bring this character on into your kitchen?
This non-Mexican, non-American, non-Yankee,
non-Southerner.
Well, a lot of those non-nons I kind of related to, because I grew up in Raleigh. I was originally born outside of Los Angeles in La Mirada area, but at age like 5, I moved to here with my family. That was because of my father pursuing restaurants. Not something he had worked in ever in California. We had already been there for 20 plus years in California. He worked in an entirely different industry, like in auto factories. He takes a chance on restaurant life in North Carolina through his brother. He invites him to partake in an industry that he was already starting to kind of take on.
Yeah.
And my dad, with no experience at all in restaurants, says, you know what? I trust my brother's word that this is a good industry.
This is like closer to the American dream
right,
that we're
like
looking for.
That's going to be the progress he wanted. I mean, he had already had seniority and all this great stuff in his old job. But he took that chance, and we uproot the family, move over here. I end up being a Carolinian as a result, really. That's how I really, I don't consider myself a Los Angelino. I consider myself a North Carolinian. And but you kind of have that identity situation as well, where you don't really know if you're from North Carolina or you're from Los Angeles, but you know your parents are Mexican, and you just kind of have all these mixed identities, but you kind of all end up fusing them all together as you get older. But in terms of restaurant life, I started working in restaurants, but Oscar actually joined the group through my older brother, who was running Ibarra at the time. He was hiring an executive chef position, and he hired Oscar. And I was just I'd been out of college for a couple of years. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and I wasn't even sure if I wanted to work in restaurants, to be honest. But meeting Oscar was actually kind of something that really helped me kind of make a decision as to where I wanted to go. Because meeting him, I kind of saw a person and a chef that obviously had a ton of talent, but also like a vibe and that I connected with. That I was like, okay, this is somebody I could see us working with and feel like we're on the same path.
Before we jump ahead in your story, isn't it that you're from Jalisco, or your family's from Jalisco, right?
Yeah, and so it is actually.
Oh, you're both families.
Yeah.
One of you, the actual like specific village you're from in Jalisco, isn't there like 140 or like 500 restaurants now owned by those people from that actual village in the States or something like that?
Yeah, it started to get publicized. I knew it was going to be something crazy. But the guy that did a piece on us in Time Magazine last year, Gustavo Arellano, he really started diving into that and seeing how huge this network of restaurants is. And it really is. I mean, this kind of actually goes back to the whole my dad moving to North Carolina. That was part of this migration to North Carolina of Latinos, but a lot of, like, not a good portion of these Latinos that were moving in were people from this village in Mexico. Not all to North Carolina, it was really to the East Coast. Essentially, they all used a formula of a restaurant. Was that kind of that Tex-Mex restaurant? Because they had different names.
Yeah.
But they all basically had the same menu, the same style.
Right.
And, I mean, it's
Chile rancheros.
But like literally the same menu. Like one day it was freaking me out. They were like, yo, look, we pulled up this menu from like 1980 in Atlanta. What's the number 3 combo on our menu? And they're like, this, and this. And they're like, yep, like to the T.
It was
like,
just a formula.
To the same like misprints and shit. Like.
So the same small village in Jalisco was just pumping out Mexican restaurants all over the country.
Yeah, it just created that network of people that had made it in the States, and essentially they were just telling, and they just wanted to keep expanding the same concepts because they saw how fruitful they were, so they would find the next town over.
Unofficially tied together, like they're not really tied together, but maybe only just kind of through like distant family or like, my cousin's doing this, or not even really a cousin, but you just call him a cousin,
right?
Type of thing. Oh, my uncle. Well, not really my uncle, but he's opening a place, so we'll do it, and we'll do it, and we'll do it.
There's always everybody started opening these restaurants with the help of a cousin or a brother, or some sort of relative or somebody that married into the family. And then they would use that person as kind of, you'd always have like an anchor person that would open a restaurant with you, but you kind of always found a reliable partner through family to open more restaurants. So it just became like a wildfire where these restaurants opened all through the 90s, really.
Sounds like a pretty big unofficial corporation,
Yeah. Well, I think it's called Chili's.
No.
Well, I mean, because, I want to jump in, and we're going to get in deeper to the food and how you guys have fused Latino culture with Southern culture. But in those restaurants, I mean, it sounded to me like those weren't authentic Mexicans. They were more like a Tex-Mex idea, whereas, like versus the California where you might have grown up and you remember it's more of like a Baja style. So, right? Am I right?
Well, like my mom romanticizes like things that she romanticizes from California are like these burrito shops, like kind of like, I guess, a chargrill situation where you're rolling up to like a windowed counter store and you're getting like these humongous burritos, or like she would always romanticize things, but we don't serve any of that stuff at the restaurants that my dad operates. Like it's more Tex-Mex for sure, but it kind of became Tex-Mex with all these modifications to it, just done by these Mexican operators that are my father and all these other people, and they just kind of kept adapting to what they thought people liked in North Carolina. But like, what does a gringo like? And they were kind of just adapting all the time.
I see.
But it's a weird. I don't even know exactly what to call it.
And your dad's restaurants are the Rancherita restaurants in Raleigh, correct?
Yeah. So he operates the Rancherita, and the first restaurant he opened was Everdale, but he's since then branched out of that and just done the Rancherita.
Okay, so that's a perfect place to jump in, because when you opened Jose and Sons, you didn't want to do that same formula and have the same number 3 combo be the same as La Rancherita or many other quote unquote Mexican restaurants. So what was the thinking there?
Well, that's where Oscar was so instrumental, because I I knew I didn't want to do what my dad had been doing this whole time.
Right.
But I didn't really know what that would look like. And then Oscar came up with his awesome ideas about fusing local, just really making an identity for what we have locally. But he could probably speak to it.
Yeah, I think in that same article, or maybe it was a different one, there was a time where you were making the masa flour and that you would use for tortillas, and you decided to use grits in that as well?
Yeah. So when I got here, Jose and Sons. So I've been here for like 8 years now.
Yeah.
Do we ever get to how we got here?
Oh, okay. Let me jump into that. All right. Good.
His brother, Charlie's brother, hired you.
Yeah. So I got here. I was in Chicago. Didn't work. I was just like, I need to move. I don't, something about being home.
You didn't have enough neon T-shirts.
To
work for the L2O guy.
I couldn't get any attention. I couldn't get friction. So I was like, whatever. I need to come up with a plan. And seriously, like right when I decided that, a friend that I'd worked with in Vegas, actually the first guy I ever met in Vegas, he hit me up and he's like, hey man, I'm in North Carolina. I'm working. He's like, you want to come over here and help us like at this restaurant that I'm at? And I was like, North Carolina? Cool. I'm like, sure. Like, I don't know what's out there. And so I came out here and I forgot, it was Bistro, like 110 or something. I don't know. It was in McGregor Park. And I came and we were like, I was just it felt good to be in the kitchen. I was around my friends and we just started kind of going. But then the owner closed shop. And then that's where I was like, do I go back to Chicago or what? And literally that day, someone there was like, hey man, like you're pretty good at what you do. Like, and they were like trying to help me get a job. Like everyone was like, it was weird because they weren't like really trying to take care of other people, but they were like, you need to like stick around. And so then they found like a Craigslist ad and they were like, yo, hit this restaurant's looking for an executive chef and it says it's fine dining Mexican. And I was like, what? Fine dining Mexican?
Does that even exist?
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds like I'm the Mexican and I eat good food. I could do that. No, so I was like, I don't know. And then I just called them up and I was like, let's see what this is about. And then it's funny because like when I was in Chicago looking at like researching Raleigh, what better way to research than Yelp? Can't believe I'm saying that. No, I mean, Yelp, it does give you a portal in a sense to like what's happening. So I'm like downtown, like, and then I was like, what kind of Mexican restaurant? I just wanted to know a little bit of something. And I never worked at a Mexican restaurant, so it wasn't like I was trying to work at one.
You just want to know where you eat.
Yeah, where am I going to eat? What are they doing out there? Like, what is everyone doing? So I was like looking stuff up, and I came across Ibarra, and I remember this one picture. And when I walked in for the interview, I looked in the corner, and I'm like, holy shit, this is that place. And I was like, it was like something in my mind started being like, like when you're in Vegas and you see like 7 and then 7 and you're like, ooh, and like one more 7 and I'm jackpot. And that's what I felt like. I felt like there was like lines being connected and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I met them and it was disastrous. It was really disastrous. Like I interviewed myself basically. I just talked for like 3 hours. And
then you got set up with like
kind of like this podcast.
Yeah, no, seriously. With no microphone there. So you guys are screwed. I got more shit on my side now.
No, but you got set up with like the chopped.
Yeah, his brother put me in a reality show. Like right there. He's like, all right, come in tomorrow, 3 o'clock, cook some food. He made it real vague. He's like, just cook some food and then we'll taste it. And then if we like it, we'll move from there. I'm like, cool. So I'm thinking like, man, I'm going to make like one, cheesy quesadilla or something. But I'm like, all right. And then I come in and it's like, he's like, all right, well, there's going to be like 20 of us. And he's like, we'll be here at like 5. I'm like, it's 3 o'clock. Like, what? Yeah. And then I go in there.
They provide the ingredients? They say like,
he's like, you can use anything you want. Okay. And I'm like, all right, well, at least there's that. Man, everything was already like seasoned, prepped, frozen. It was like, so there was just like some issues from my standpoint. And oh my God, I don't even know if I could. I threw together this. Man, I threw together. I don't know what I did, but it looked horrible. It looked. I had a server.
Charlie, what are your thoughts of this meal?
Well, right, I just got invited to. Hey, come meet this guy's interviewing for a job. I was like, okay, free food, sure. And then we were kind of confused of the food, but then later on, I found out about the circumstances and I was like, oh, well, he didn't. I will say
because I came out and I was kind of mad because like one of the servers was like, dude, he's like, I like you. He's like, I've been talking with you. He's like, we really need a chef. He's like, but this looks horrible. And I was like, and I was getting pissed because I'm like, you know what, man? I was like, I got nothing to work with here. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, 20 people. I'm like, yo. So I went out there and I was like, no, I'm taking this dish out. And I went out there and I was like, pfft. And I was like, look, man, I made food because I think y'all are depending on today. Like, not that you can't go eat, but I'm like, y'all were thinking you're going to come here and eat. So I just feel the need to feed y'all. But I'm like, we got bigger problems than like you're looking for a chef. And I was like, aside from what was handed to me, I feel what's going on back there. And I just like kind of went out there and I was like, I don't know, it's just who I am, you know. I didn't know them, so I was like,
Told them what's what.
Yeah, I was
fix their kitchen.
Yeah,
that actually helped. Like that in the interview process. Like,
well, and then they were like,
"Yo,
okay,
respect
and
for
then they
that."
gave me proper time and shit, and I came in like a week later or something, and like I forgot what I did. Everyone was asking me what I did. I don't remember any of the. I don't remember anything, honestly.
But it was better, I assume.
Yeah, it was like I had full. But it was funny though because the guys in the back did not like me, and I'm like, I'm not even hired yet, and they were like, you know, like stretching their elbows out,
Muscle
like you
you
can't
out of a
come.
workspace.
And then they're like it was just so weird. And this one guy just kept mean dogging me the whole time, and I'm like, man, this will be fun working with him.
Wait till I'm your boss. That's it.
Well, so let's get
But that's
into
when he
it.
joined the team. That was about 8 years ago. That I think
8
that
years
happened.
ago.
Yeah.
Because Jose and Sons was 6 years old. So,
Okay. So that's the timeline. He was at Ibarra. Then you guys opened up Jose and Sons together. That was kind of your first joint together.
Yeah.
And so now you, Charlie, are like officially a restaurateur because you have this place. And even Jose and Sons. Let's not sleep on that. I know we were talking about the Cortez, but the first time I went to Jose and Sons, it's I guess from my interpretation, you tell me how far off I am. It's like taking traditional items from the Mexican menu, like the quote unquote Mexican menu, but then flipping it with ingredients and technique that are more indigenous to this area. Is that kind of fair to say? Like you're using local stuff to make what you would kind of consider a Mexican dish.
well, yeah, I think Oscar kind of decided he could kind of go back and forth between the two cultures, and sometimes it's a dish from the South, like shrimp and grits, that he's infusing Mexican ingredients into to give, like, he'll amp up the spice level a little bit, or he'll make like a unique sauce for it, or vice versa. It could be something Mexican that gets a little bit of a southern touch to it, like incorporating, like we have a picnic, which is really like a parrillada, like a cookout. Mm-hmm. You got your grilled steak and sauce, but you know you have sauteed collard greens accompanying that, and that's obviously not something you see in your Mexican household. So you're kind of just reimagining that kitchen table or that dinner table, whether it be in the Mexican home or a Southern home. You're kind of combining the two. But for me, that was really cool when he kind of explained this idea to me of how the food could work out, because I grew up, like I said, in North Carolina, so I really had that juxtaposition in my head. I just hadn't thought about it with food.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I don't know if we're like going too deep into a tangent or not, but we talked about it before. From Facebook, Brandon Shepard, he's a chef out there on the coast. He posed this great question, tied a bunch of people into it. He himself is African American. He's talking about the difference between soul food and Southern food. And I chimed in, because I always chime in, and I said, what's the difference, basically? And I was like, I think, just to be like really blunt and straightforward, I think soul food is food that is cooked in the South that has African roots, that is cooked by an African American person. And whereas Southern food is similar, but it's more rooted. It's a broader sense. It's multiple cultures cooking food regionally in the South by anyone. And so I didn't mean to make it so like specific to race, but I kind of think that is the separation. But then that brings up an argument of where do the Latinos fit into this whole thing? And what a lot of the culture that I've seen, I know some like one-offs here and there, like Mark over at Longleaf Swine has a Puerto Rican background, and he's bringing that influence into his barbecue. But the two of you, now Charlie, you yourself are a North Carolinian, and you've been here almost your entire life, but your family did immigrate from and then lived on the West Coast, and even Oscar as well. Like you kind of were bouncing around, but you've been all over. So it's fair to say that even just one generation or two had kind of moved themselves to North Carolina or to the South to then start making their food. So how does the Latino culture fit inside of the South, and what does that look like in a modern day? Is that what you guys are trying to do?
I mean, I think we are absolutely trying to finding creative expression of our identities. Like we don't really talk amongst ourselves about identity so much, but we always talk about how we're feeling about just where we belong, which is, I guess, an identity. But so, like I said, when I grew up here, I went down the street to Broughton. That was my high school, and even at UNC Chapel Hill, Latinos were very, very few in population at both schools.
Sure.
It was just minor, but I would always find myself bouncing around these different groups of, at the cafeteria table in your high school, you're just going to have those different groups of people. And I've always kind of found myself being the one that jumped around. Like one day I'd be on this table, next day I'd be on the other table. So I'd be like the international table, the Latino table, the more like skater punk table, the preppy table. I would just be amongst all of them. That was just part of how I like to vibe. But then you translate that into like growing up, and if you say you're gonna create a restaurant with someone, well, I just felt like it only made sense to do it in a way that was. I mean, he explained the food to me, and I was like, well, I like the idea of a restaurant where anybody can come in and feel welcome and comfortable, and then the food kind of makes sense because it's like just a huge combination of things that hopefully both people can connect with. Like Latinos can connect to the food because they'll see the Mexican stuff they enjoy, and then the American South people will also be like, oh, cool, they also have these like shrimp and grits and stuff like that. So
I also think that it's necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of, Max, do you remember when Anna Gass, who just wrote the Heirloom Kitchen book, was talking about the Ukraine grandmother cooking borscht when she got to Queens.
Yeah.
And so you want to make this dish.
She was grabbing all the she was grabbing beets from the Ukraine and packing them with her to take to America because she's like, I don't know what they're going to have.
Right. But once she got here, obviously, you run out of those initial ingredients you brought, but you want to make something that sort of mimics that, but you have to use local ingredients. So I think that kind of makes sense, right? So you're making like a basis of Mexican food, but then you want to use fresh ingredients. So it's brilliant because you're using necessarily what's fresh around you, and those are starting to infuse in your food and affect the flavor and et cetera.
Yeah, so like for me, I mean, That I was tagged in that post, by the way, and I didn't have much. I just chimed in like one little tiny thing, but I was like, I don't know what to say. You know, it's not my call. I have an idea, but anyway, for me, really growing up in Chicago, I grew up in a heavy Latino community, but I was still a first generation American, but I grew up in Logan Square, and there was a lot of Puerto Rican, a lot of Mexican. So I kind of grew up with a lot of people like, that looked like me. So that was...
You didn't feel like a minority.
No. I mean, seriously, there was like maybe like one or two like white kids in my like grammar school. Like, so, I mean, they were, in a weird sense, they were kind of the minority in our neighborhood. So, but we never, I didn't really look, you're a kid, you don't look at things that way really. But I just felt like... I just felt like honestly American. Like, I mean, I know I was Mexican because we ate tortillas and rice and beans every day and salsa, and we spoke Spanish at home, and I'd go to Mexico for the summers. But I felt like, hey, like we all like the Bulls, like we like hip hop, we like this. And then I moved around or whatever. But then when I came here, I think for me what it was like there was really that one thing, and I talk about it a lot, but it was kind of like an impactful moment with food here because they're like, oh yeah, you must make a killer queso dip. I remember someone telling me that, and I'm like, what the fuck is queso dip? And because I mean, I know those words, right? Like I know the words, but I'm like, queso dip, and like, what's the association with a Mexican? And we have like queso fundido and stuff like that. So I was like, queso fundido. They're like, no, queso dip, and I'm like, what? And finally, it was them, and they were like, dude, and then like they showed me.
You're pointing to Charlie.
Oh, Charlie, sorry, yeah,
it's a podcast, bro.
Yeah, my bad.
We need to get a video camera.
I know,
think
right?
that's just like
when they start vlogging. No. So they,
it's like an American
Charlie
version. It's what Americans think Mexican food is.
No, because in Chicago that wasn't there. In LA, it wasn't there. Like it wasn't. So that's what I'm saying. So it was like it was a regional thing now.
Yeah. It's also because Southern food people love to slather things on things.
Yes,
with cheese and with dips.
So it was funny because I'm like, oh, you mean like movie theater cheese? That's to me if that had a denomination, it'd be movie theater.
Yeah.
Like that would be its race of that cheese. I'm like, oh, that's movie theater cheese, bro. Like why do
I think that is the proper term.
So what happened was that like when I got here, like Ibarra was doing like they were well, I mean, I got here when they already had changed their like over to downtown, but they were trying to give like a modern Mexican kind of like fine dining experience, and we're in the middle of a recession, and then all of a sudden people are coming up to me and they're like handing me this torch, and I always talk about that, but it was weird. They're like, oh, you're a Mexican chef? Here's what Mexican chefs are supposed to do here. Like melt cheese. Like you can't have a Mexican restaurant and not have melted movie theater cheese.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe if I show a movie, I'll make that, but I'm not doing that shit. I didn't go through all that. I didn't go, like, I mean, like, I can make LA and Vegas sound really dope because I work for great people, but like there was a lot of hardships, like financially, like mentally, like shit, physically. I went through a lot, and like I didn't go through all that to come back and have someone define my career based on how I look, and to tie in something really quick into the James Beard thing, that was what meant the most to me, and like the Time magazine shout out and all that was like, I'm being validated as more than like, it wasn't like some like, oh, best Mexican chef. It's like I just got treated normal. It was like fair across the board, right?
Yeah, you're a great chef.
Yeah, it was period, and it wasn't like for doing this or and so that to me was kind of what I wanted to do with Jose and Sons, where I'm like, look, but I wanted to respect the South because I'd also just fallen in love with like the farmers. Like LA has great produce and all that stuff, but I don't know where the hell it's being grown because I was in LA. So like, now it's changing and stuff, but we weren't just like going to the farmers market.
I felt the same way. Living in LA, I would go to farmers markets, but I didn't really know where that farm was. Didn't really care. I just knew because there's so many. It was ubiquitous. It's like, of course the tomatoes are from here because we're in LA.
Yeah.
But there's almost less pride of like what we're actually getting.
I felt like, so, I lived in downtown LA, like Skid Row. And so Grand Central Market there, I mean, look, the produce was good, but none of it was really like farmers market quality. So when I got here, I remember like tomato season and pepper season. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yeah. I'm like, this is no joke.
I moved to the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, and so like that to me, like that was like finding something amazing. And I'm like, look, I don't know too much about Raleigh, but what I do know is that their produce is on fire. And so like that to me is when the idea started coming. I'm like, man, we need to respect so you go into these places and they're getting all these Mexican restaurants, they're getting all this canned stuff, like canned to make your salsa and all this, and maybe some of it's cost. Maybe I'm not really downing what they do because like I will say a lot of it was a way for them to put their kids through college. Like like Charlie's parents put him and his brothers through
UNC.
Yeah, I mean, right? I'm like, man, I did that a little too well, maybe.
And Broughton's not. That's also a pretty awesome school too.
I told Gustavo that Queso Dip paid my tuition, so I was like, hey, I can't hate on Queso Dip because it paid my tuition.
You need that shirt, but yeah. So I mean, we're on same wavelengths. We're both first generation. That's when we met, and I think like we're a little bit closer in age, and then we just kind of thought the same way. And we're willing to like break out of the mold. I had never been in one, so like I was like, why are you guys trying to squeeze me into this like thing? And I'm not feeling comfortable in it. So that was my thing right away. I was like, yo, I want to do Southern. Like American and this, and I'm not an expert on Southern American, so I did a lot of research. I went down and I was trying to eat as much grits as I can. I mean, I gained so I'm like, yo, this is like tamale season right here. And that's kind of the thought. I'm like, this is like eating tamales. Yeah. And I'm like, holy. And then so I started mixing masa, grits, and then I started taking, wrapping tamales in collards because I'm like, that'd be really cool if you can eat the wrap. Because I've served tamales and people like bite into the banana leaf, and I'm like, oh man, they don't get it. And I'm like, well, how can I mimic this? I try to find. If I wasn't a chef, I'd try to be a stand-up comic, and I think that's what it is. I saw food through like this lens of like a little bit comical, a little bit whimsical, and I mean, there was one of the words that I thought was really funny. That, I mean, at the time, I don't know how it goes down, but I was like, "Yo, we're gonna do Confederexican," and they were like, "What?" And I'm like, "We're doing Confederexican." And look, I wasn't
saying that over and over. And I was
and they were like, "What?" But like, because it was like, if I forgot, like if you come up with a good idea, you try to write it.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like kind of funny. It was like a joke, so I'm not gonna forget the joke. So that was my one way to not forget the vibe, the idea, that feeling.
You're doing
I'm slightly being racist.
But it was a way to like. I was like, all right, and look, I'm not from the South, and then now obviously this is 8 years ago. I'm not saying things have changed that much, but that was just like a funny thought that came to my mind, and I was like, oh, but it really did come from seeing the farmer's market, from seeing that, and then just having that connection. Like when I started going out to eat and I started getting like pulled pork, I mean, this reminds me of cochinita, like super sour and like soft texture, and I just started. I'm like, if you put tortillas with that, and my father was the king of that. Like living in Chicago, he'd get like all leftovers, and he didn't care. He put in a tortilla, salsa. He's like, whatever, Chinese, don't matter. So I was like, yo,
wrap that shit up. Put
food
some
all
hot
makes
sauce
sense. So like, I think when we tapped into that and we started having real conversations that weren't just us being like, haha, like it'd be funny. All of a sudden, like we started seeing a real cuisine come up, and then I started like actually doing the dishes, and we're like, I think there's something to be said for this, and it helped break us out of a box, but then also kind of like create something for here. I'm like, Tex-Mex is over there. We're here. We're Southeast. Like,
just so like to put some context is like, Oscar will give me these like really cool ideas, and then it's kind of like what I feel like I have to do because it is like at the end of the day, a bit of a family business where I have like my brothers invested with me and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and we, just kind of to take something that's like outside the box, like this idea, and then say, okay, we're gonna like roll with this. I mean, you're financially investing into an idea that is really unique, right? It's not something I could ever point anywhere and say, okay, this has been done before. I see a path to success. So telling this to my father, he's like, why are you changing the path to success? It's like there's already laid out models like what I'm doing that works. Like you've seen that work. Why are you doing that? Why are you gonna go this way? And
That's exactly why.
I
Because you did that. That's your story to tell, Dad.
Yeah.
right,
I want to tell my own.
right. So
I just want to put an exclamation point on that because the first time I ate at Jose and Sons, I went in there and I just sat at the bar. I was by myself. I was having lunch, and they give you the salsa and the warm tortilla chips, and I dipped it in, and I took a bite, and I just went, "Oh, that's different."
Yeah.
Like just from right there, just because all the fresh ingredients that you're and how fresh you're making your salsa and everything, it's just like boom, right there in the first bite.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to take care, and there's still a lot to be learned from it because it is so Jose and Sons is still a growing experience. Like the more I get involved with cooking, the more I get involved in the South, the more I'm finding this identity. The more that I feel that's like that's just the place that I know that it's gonna keep evolving a lot more. Like Cortez. We had a vision. Like we went to a place. We had a desire to have like seafood. I really wanted to celebrate again North Carolina, and so I wanted to celebrate the coast because I was like, I felt there was a lack of seafood restaurants, and if there were, I felt like it was a lot of like same stuff, like a lot of fried, and which is cool, but I was like, it'd be nice to get like grilled whole fish or something like that. Like I didn't grow up eating hush puppies and like all this fried stuff. I grew up eating like a lot of ceviches, a lot of like just like. A little bit different fare. And I was like, it'd be really cool if we can express ourselves in that way. So we started coming up with the Cortez, and then we got, like, not carried away, but we really let ourselves, like, commit to it. And the way we designed them, we took ownership of it for, like, everything, like, every design and all. So we just, I feel like it's going to grow as well, but Jose and Sons was so, like, I mean, we were, I don't want to say young because it was 8 years. I mean, 8 years ago was a long time. We were just kind of like, throwing a dart, and we're like, all right, let's see. And we took a lot of
experimenting.
We're experimenting. So there was a lot of things that we left incomplete, and that I'm looking back. I'm like, we need to fill all these gaps, and like really. So I'm just really proud of both of the places, honestly. But Jose and Sons definitely gave me that confidence too.
I want to call you guys out on your Mexican stereotype because you did just roll in here with margarita fixins.
Right.
To make drinks, like just that's what all Mexicans do. They just walk around with margarita mixes.
You don't walk around.
It also is the weekend before Cinco de Mayo.
It's Cinco de Mayo,
Yeah,
man.
which is not really important to Mexicans at all, but
No.
Americans have found that
only
that is
if
a
you
holiday.
work in the Mexican restaurant business, and you're like,
Yeah,
mark
no.
this down.
But Americans want Mexicans to love Cinco de Mayo the way that they want us to love queso dip. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, this makes me feel like you think I care about you.
I'm like,
So,
thank you.
Viva la Cinco de Mayo? I guess. I was just going to say, though, in making light of that, Charlie, you got to make us these margaritas. You brought margarita fixins, but because we have to fill time when you're doing it.
Can we pause right there and talk about a place that you could possibly get sour mix if you wanted to make margaritas?
Yeah, maybe not tequila, but you could get all the other things. Yeah, like even, you guys ever put a good vermouth in a margarita? That would be a good idea.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I've tried that.
Yeah. Like Triangle Wine Company? Is that what
That's
you're
what
thinking
I was
about?
thinking.
I was waiting. I was like, there's a plug, but I don't know it. I'm excited. I'm all like, ooh, who is it?
Who is it? Yeah, well,
I feel like
you can go to Triangle Wine Company, and they have 4 locations. They have in my neck of the woods, Holly Springs. They're in Cary. They're in Morrisville. And all the way out there in Southern Pines, you can get all types of great wine and beer, but you could also get vermouths and bitters and a little bit of food.
Maybe some beer to like chase a good tequila or so.
Yeah, because you have to have that.
And,
Like a Vienna lager, Mexican lager kind of thing as well.
Yeah. So, and then also you use, of course, our promo code NCFB to get 10% off on all your purchases. But I was going to ask you, Oscar, I alluded to it earlier, but will you reveal some of your secrets behind the bean dish?
Yeah. Secret number 1, Google.
So
I've never heard of that.
Dad jokes.
On your menu, you have a butter bean, I believe it is, right? It's a butter bean dish.
We're talking about at the Cortez.
At the
At the Cortez. So right now we call it buttered bean and peas because butter beans aren't in season right now. They're about to be, and I'm pumped for that. That again, all seasons are great, right? But like when the warmer weather provides a little bit better things. But it started with butter beans, field peas, Dixie Lee peas, 6-week, all the peas that are here, which are amazing. And I mix them I just basically cook them off till they're ready. And then the dish itself, what we're doing is really just mounting butter with lemon juice and Parmesan. And that's what creates that sauce that really takes that over the top. I mean, obviously, when you cook your beans, you want to cook them perfect. You don't want to overcook them. You don't want to undercook them. But once we get them perfect and they're ready for service, it's a really easy thing. And then we just put either tomatoes in the summer, or we oven dry some tomatoes to kind of like add a little bit more umami to it. And then an egg to give it rich. It's a super rich dish, but it is the dark horse on the menu because I've had a lot of people, and I love it, especially when it is the butter beans and the field peas and all that. And like people that have been born and raised here, they're like Southern people, they're like, why would you have this on your menu? Like, it's so like, meh, Right. But they haven't tasted it yet. Yeah. And then they're like, and then I'm like, send them that dish. Send them that dish. I'm like, because the reaction is always the same. They're like, "Oh my god!" Like
I know why you have that on the menu.
How the hell? It's funny. Like steak eaters, vegetarian, like everybody. They're like everyone across the board's like, low key. My favorite dish was the beans, and I'm like, that's awesome because like beans are such a humble. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's ever like, oh, dude, get the beans.
Peasant food, right?
Felicia put on Facebook, like, she just said, like, hey, so excited. Max and I are going to check out the Cortez tonight. And we had like one gal that we know said, make sure you get the buttered bean dish. It's amazing. And then 5 people immediately after that all liked that comment. They're like, yes, that's the dish.
Yeah.
So we're like, we heard this is the dish. And to be honest, coming into your menu, I saw many beautiful things listed on the Cortez is essentially a seafood restaurant. I mean, it's a seafood spin, right? So many delicious items, including like, like fresh oysters and all this amazing stuff. I would not have thought to order the bean dish. It was probably the least important thing I thought on the menu.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's the best thing on the menu, in my personal opinion.
No, I mean, they're all my babies, so I don't get jealous. No, really, it is a seafood restaurant. But so when we first opened, I went like really crazy seafood, and it was like everything was just a seafood dish. And some of them were like really small sashimi, like really small little dishes. And I was like, man, I kind of need to introduce things that are like that make people feel good after like full, because you
don't want people walking out feeling like, man, that Cortez was tasty, but I'm hungry.
Yeah, like where everything is just like steam this or small plate. I mean, it's still in the theory of small plates, but I wanted something a little bit more filling. And I come from a Mexican household. Like, you never came to my house and left full.
Yeah.
Like, and my mom would like make sure you took food with you. Like, man, my friends kind of like were nervous to come to my house because they're like, my mom cooked all the time. She's an amazing chef, or like amazing cook. But a lot of my friends growing up they didn't eat a lot of like ethnic food. I mean, and they were themselves, but it's weird. It happens. Like, some kids are like, no, I just want cheeseburgers and pizza.
Right.
And I'm like, you're Mexican and that's all you eat? I'll be so mad. I'm like, what, you don't eat mole? And they'd be like, no. So like they would come into the house and my mom was like, no, you guys are going to sit down and eat. And she would force them to like eat. So I kind of feel that way at the restaurant too, where I'm like, I want people to. I want there to be some dishes that are filling. You know what I mean? I want people, and that's the beans. And I've always loved and again, the butter beans and stuff here are amazing.
I think that is a true definition of how you've taken your culture mixed with Southern culture in one dish that really did just kind of sing. So
awesome.
We say salud.
Yeah,
salud.
Salud.
Here's to Mexican. Oh yeah, Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo, I guess.
Mexican St. Patrick's Day, basically.
Yeah. Exactly. Everybody wanted to drink more.
And to get it right, it's the Battle of Puebla, not Mexican Independence Day. So
yeah,
let's set the record straight.
The Battle of Puebla.
Yeah, it is the Battle of Puebla. I mean, I guess in Puebla they care about it, right?
Yeah, probably.
Sure. I mean, it's no Game of Thrones battle.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question to you guys. Do you think, based on this, I mean, because I'll just retort Max's statement about soul food versus Southern food, that like Rick Bayless is a white man cooking some great Mexican food. And nobody will ever take that away from him. And I don't think any even Mexican chef would be like, no, your food's not Mexican or authentic. So
what's the difference? Yeah, like I guess the idea is that so all African people can cook Southern food, just like anyone can cook Southern food. Yeah. But I'm saying there's a subcategory that in an African American household, that's where soul food is cooked. So I don't know, like if there is a term, which I don't think there is a term for Mexican like food that's made by Mexicans in their house. It's not like la raza, style. But if there was a word, that would be that word. I just think that we're living in an area where there is a definition for solely black food,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's soul food, in my opinion.
And that might be, but actually, do you guys have a definition for what you think, or do you, maybe you're defining what Latino food is or what Mexican food is now in the South? Because I was just giving this analogy to Max, is like, almost every cool place now, good restaurant, has their own version of a banh mi sandwich.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not necessarily authentic Vietnamese, although it has Vietnamese roots, but that's how the banh mi is now expressed in the South. So that's Southern Vietnamese cooking.
I've been to Rick Bayless's restaurants. I understand he's worked really hard, and, he does his best to, like, uphold the culture. My only gripe with that is that for the longest on TV, and this is where I would like to, anyway, anywhere you would see them, they'd be like, every time they're like, oh, we're going to have let's say it's Top Chef. They're like, we're going to have a Mexican competition today. And they're like, we're going to bring in America's favorite Mexican chef, and it's Rick Bayless.
Right.
And, okay, nothing against him, but, like, then I feel like it's something against me, though, in a sense, right? Like,
right.
And I'm not saying me, anyone like me, right? Of all the workforce in this country, of all the people with ideas, of all the people that can cook,
Yeah.
do you mean to tell me there's no one else? And then they're like, sometimes Bobby Flay,
Right.
sometimes, and I'm like, and it took so long to have representation.
So it's just kind of Latinos are underrepresented in American food culture, is what we're saying.
Well, and then when they are represented, they're expected to, like, when I got here, melt cheese and do this, carry these torches,
Yeah.
and it's like, and people always, to this day, people, will be like, you're a cook or something like that, and I'm like, I get it, like, not everyone knows the difference between chef and a cook and all that, but it's just, it's weird. And so, like, for me, it's more about that. It's not about, like, there's a problem here. I don't think they notice what's going on. But it's like, to me, I'm like, wait, there can be representation of us. And there's a lot of brilliant chefs out there of all kinds. So it's one of those weird things because I don't think anyone should not be allowed. I do things that are not within my culture. But that's what I'm trying to always say is, like, it is my culture. And that's what I'm learning through cooking, right? Like, I'm a first-generation American who's moved from Chicago in a Puerto Rican neighborhood to Vegas, where there's, like, just no identity. To L.A., where I was in downtown, where, there's a super huge, like,
Very strong Latino
there is,
population.
but I love L.A. Kind of was a turning point too because I felt there was a lot of, like, Filipinos, Latinos, Black. Like, when I would go hang out after work, it was a hodgepodge of everyone. And I actually took them to a bar once when we were out there visiting, and it was perfect because they were playing, like, hip hop. Then it went into, like, banda. And everybody was getting it in. They're just like
K-pop.
And they all and everyone eats. Everyone knows what a pupusa is. Everyone knows what a good quesadilla is. Everyone knows huitlacoche. Everyone knows bulgogi. Everyone knows, like, Jamaican patties. So it's like, I was like, yo, this culture is dope because it's not really about the culture. It's about what, like, all the cultures combining to make one.
It's about Los Angeles culture.
Yeah, being a Los Angelino first, which is, I mean, it's being American in a sense, like, right? There's all these people here that are Americans now. You can't take that, we were born here.
In the Bay Area, like, Asian food is part of the common vernacular of the Bay Area, and it's just food.
Yeah.
Every restaurant that opens up saying we're doing local food has a banh mi, has a rice bowl, has, like, they might even roll some sushi. It's because it's standard.
And that's what I see, because I know for a while, like, that whole, like, authenticity, and, like, if you get caught in that authenticity train, it gets real difficult to ever grow out of anything. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we need to be authentic to ourselves, but, like, to have influences, for example, here, like, if people now are doing more banh mi's on the menu, it meant that these group of people made such an influence with their food, and food is really, like, come on, like, when's the last time you ever ate a meal with someone angry or something? You know what I mean? Like, I think food can kind of, like, solve a lot of problems. And
break bread together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so the fact that this community, as small as it may be, had an effect on the way people make their is awesome. You know what I mean? And I think if we start looking at it that way, like, we can allow for more things, but, as long as it doesn't get lost. You know what I mean? Like, I think that might be some of the problems with, like, soul food and that, where it's like people feel like they're taking this or so. I read the whole thing, and there's so many sides to it. But, that's why I just kind of stood quiet and read it, because I'm like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
I guess the question I'm asking more is, so if somebody who was visiting North Carolina, and let's say that they were a Los Angelino or a Chicagoan or a New Yorker, would they go to a Mexican restaurant, like a good Mexican restaurant like Jose and Sons, or not that the Cortez is a Mexican restaurant, quote unquote, but, like, would there be a theme that they would be like, oh, okay, like, this Mexican food is very different from the authentic Mexican restaurants that I'm going to at home because they are using Southern ingredients in there as a whole or something like that. I'm just wondering if it's starting to become a thing, like a Latino Southern cultural food.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do think we were, lucky in the fact that we did kind of set that trend for a little bit. Like, we're doing the Latino Southern thing here. I think Cortez and Jose and Sons are a little bit different, but my cousins were just here from LA, and they ate at Jose and Sons and Cortez. They're awesome. I should plug them. But anyway, they were telling me, like, oh, this is amazing. And this familiar. It'll be like mole, but on top of scallops and then like a bunch of braised collards and this.
Right.
And it's from here. So, but they get it. They get the flavors. And I think that's what food should be, right? Yeah. So even in Mexico, like, my aunt cooked different from my mom. And then people in different regions cook a little bit different. And they take what they have and they use it in their influences. And so I think the core is there, right? Like, I'm trying to figure out a way to, like in my mind, like, create the Mexican mother sauces in a sense, like, boom, boom, boom. And then from there, we break off and we do what we want with it. The French restaurants I worked at weren't making, like, coq au vin and stuff like that, They're using the best ingredients that are available there and then flavors that the chef thinks that he wants to play with. So I think, there might be... I think it's just being, like, respectful of the ingredient is number one. And then two, like, giving homage, and that's what Rick Bayless does, right? Like, in all honesty, he's always, like, giving props to Mexico.
Your point is totally valid. It's he is a great representation of Mexican food because he knows it and understands it and cooks it very well. It's just, it would also, in addition, be cool if somebody representing the Latino food culture was Latino.
Yeah, because, I mean, you grow up wanting to see someone like
Jose
you.
Andres is now, like, making a big definition, but he's kind of more world, if you will.
Yeah.
Maybe not. He's not. Because
he doesn't cook Mexican food.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool to just see in general people, get love and all that stuff. But again, it's just it's unique to us. I'm not just being like Mexicans, no, because I'm an American and all that, like I said. But it's just nice to see someone that looks like you represent, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I get it. If somebody was like, oh, now we're gonna have somebody cook matzo ball soup and teach us how to do that, and then, like, some Catholic dude came on and be like, what the fuck,
Father?
Right? Still, though, I will say Matt Kelly's matzo ball soup at Lucky's is pretty damn good.
He's not saying that he can't, but you're saying if he came on TV to do it and he was like the one representation.
No, and constantly, like, every time. So it's like, I was just like, damn, man, like, give someone else a chance to go up there and rep the game.
Yeah.
But
maybe now is your chance.
Hey, if anyone's listening out there.
Seriously, we need leaders in this world, man.
I want to do one concrete example before we get out of there. Yeah. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, jalapenos, they don't grow around here, or do they?
Yeah, they grow for sure. They grow around. Yeah, actually,
they're
they
not
do.
indigenous, but you can grow.
No, but if you go to the grocery store here, I'm amazed. Like, if you get them from the farmers market, again, I'm at North Carolina State Farmers Market. Get it there. But if you go to the grocery store, they're huge here. They look like bell peppers almost. They're
okay, you give me the example. And Charlie, jump in. What's like a typical indigenous Mexican ingredient that you see in all really good Mexican cooking that you can't find in North Carolina? And then what do you do to either mimic it or substitute?
Like, sometimes, like, fresh ipazote, like some of those, like, small herbs, or like wheat lacoche. Yeah, I've currently been trying to get farmers to grow wheat lacoche. Which
wheat lacoche
it sounds horrible in English. They call it corn smut.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, but it's or also it's called
it's a fungus.
Mexican trouble. Yeah.
So it looks like cheese,
corn. Right? No, it looks crazy. It looks like corn gets infected with the wheat lacoche. Yeah. Then the kernels start, like, mutating, and they get really big, and they look white on the outside, like a oyster mushroom.
Okay.
And then on the inside,
almost like botrytis.
Yeah, and then on the inside, it's just black. It's like this black kind of tarish. Like, it's not necessarily a firm texture. It's like squid ink mixed with something, but it's super great in flavor, and it's really, like, people.
And then you shave it and put it in a dish.
Yeah, so you fabricate it off the corn, and then you cook it, and then there's multiple routes to go from there. But no one here wants to grow it. They know about it, but, like, it can kind of take over,
and
like,
then
your
infect the rest of the crop.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be, like, awesome, honestly.
But so if you wanted to make a dish with wheat lacoche, but you can't find it local, what would you use instead?
Well, then I start trying to source it, right? So, like, before I used to go crazy. I'd be like, all right. And I found someone that had some in Florida. Now I think there's people actually doing it here in North Carolina as well.
Okay.
I've been working with this guy at NC State, James Holland, and he's growing all this corn. And so we're just kind of getting into I'm trying to figure out corn, and it's kind of like tomatoes, where, like, people just want that one corn, the pretty one, and then all the other ones are just kind of disappearing because no one wants the little, purple one, or it has less yield or whatever. So we're going into that to look into it. But yeah, I'll in the past I would try to source it. Now I just say, hey, if it isn't here and it's not going to be in its best, and it's like me forcing something on a menu because I think it sounds cool or looks cool or is going to taste, if it's not as peak form, I'm not really going to try to get it. You know, I'm trying to make do with what's here.
What about what about those like ipazote spices that you were talking about? If you want to, because I know that in North Carolina we have a bounty of peppers.
Yeah, no, the pepper game here is on fire.
I thought you were going to say avocados.
Well, yeah, that's okay. So I have you can ask Charlie. I have a gripe with avocados because like. That thing's become like the drug game, like in Mexico.
It's the ultimate fruit, man. It is the greatest thing in the world.
But
it's like the stock exchange. You have to keep your eye on.
No, it could ruin your menu in a
you don't want to benchmark your food menu on an avocado.
No,
it'll ruin your profit.
Well, and so I went through a couple of times where like a case of avocado was like $100, and then it was trash because like that's the problem. Like it rained a lot, or I don't know what the case was that year, but. There was like hardly an avocado, so what was available was super expensive. Then you get them and they're all like rotten or they're like super hard. And so I was like, you know what, Charlie, I'm not gonna deal with this anymore. I'm like, let's just get rid of it. Like it's irresponsible to keep trying to sell this shit. Man, people do not take well to that.
Yeah, so that's a real thing.
I know, but I thought he was going to give us the answer like, well, if you can't find avocados, go with
you dye mayonnaise. No, I don't know. I didn't even try.
There's not a real replacement for
No,
avocado.
you have to make some kind of dip, I guess, or like hit up Subway and be like, yo, let me get those astronaut bags of whatever that is.
No. It's a good thing that the music's starting to play off now that you decided to go shop at Subway for your ingredients.
Yeah.
But that's a valid reason. Like, you're not there. If you can't get those things, then you either just don't do it or you source. You have to source those things, but that's still falling in line of being locally sourced. If you can't do it here, it's okay to go get it somewhere else, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, ethically, responsibly, I think, but try to source local first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, Matt, before these gents get out of here, we need to give them their just desserts.
Yeah, we have a little something for you.
I just coined a new term.
Your just desserts.
So our friends at Bestow Baked Goods, what do we have over here?
Heather and Kyle Sutton, always so thoughtful, have put together a wonderful cake for you.
Hey, that's really pretty.
And you guys can indulge in that. I'll probably make it use of that all weekend.
No, I know. I'm like, let's not cut it. I want to serve it at work.
Oh, that's nice. Take care of the team. But make them cut it, right? And And like totally grill them. Be like, I'm going to need a 1/8 inch cut on that. I'm going to come by with a ruler.
Super tall, super thin, yeah.
That cake looks beautiful, though.
So Bestow Baked Goods, as Matt mentioned earlier, they're good friends of ours. They're helping us out on the show, sponsoring the show, but they themselves are currently in Fuquay Varina, but they are planning to open up in Holly Springs, right next door to...
Triangle Wine Company.
That's right, in Matt's neck of the woods. So if you haven't already gone down to check them out, first, follow them at Bestow Baked Goods on Instagram. You can see what they're doing. But then go in and get a tasty treat or two. They really are delicious.
Well, guys,
what do you think?
This was the longest episode we've had in a while, but for good measure. I don't think there was any time for any dead air. But we didn't also mention that the Cortez was the co-best restaurant in the Triangle for 2018. So congratulations on that as well. Guys, go to the Cortez, go to Jose and Sons. You will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. By rating us online, you're helping others to discover our show. The magic of SEO puts the worm in our tequila. Follow us on all platforms at NCFB Pod.